Well, Irvine Welsh is here. What was it attracted you about this subject?
I would say it was, I've always been interested in both sport and art, and it was kind of trying to look at this kind of false dichotomy between the two that we kind of get kind of spoon-fed into. And it was also sort of happening, you know, that it's happening in Miami, which is a very visual culture, and it's all about kind of body image, and it's all about sort of how people look. And it's, you know, the thing about the obesity thing and the kind of faddy diets are very much a kind of big American thing.
Is it harder or getting harder, do you think, to write shocking novels? I mean, there are scenes in this that are quite shocking.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you kind of see it in that way. I mean, I don't really set out to shock when I write a novel. I set out to kind of, it's all got to be consistent with character and with story. And if it doesn't, it kind of jumps out, really. So
the protagonist in this is a lesbian, of course.
Yeah.
You're not.
I was working at it, like, yeah.
But is that difficult to write?
Well, I mean, I think it's not really. I mean, I think you kind of, one of the things about writing about sexuality is, you know, it's like anything else that you're writing, kind of, there's so much of it is subconscious that you're not really thinking overtly about kind of, you're not really thinking about gender, you're not really thinking about sexuality overtly, you know, you're aware of kind of these characters and you're just trying to make them psychologically consistent.
Was it difficult to write about lesbian sex?
It wasn't really. It was actually quite easy to write about lesbian sex, and I mean, I did have kind of both hands on the keyboard at all times. But what I did notice is when I came to adapt it to the screenplay that it was much more difficult because you're actually kind of telling the story in pictures, and when I look back at this kind of 8 pages of lesbian sex to kind of put it into this the screenplay, I just found that again, I thought. I got all prudish and actually felt like this kind of guy in his 50s kind of sort of leching about kind of writing young women having sex with each other, which I didn't feel when I was actually writing the book. So I kind of just, I condensed it down to one instruction, like they make love. You know, that replaced about 8 pages so the director can kind of handle all that stuff.
Another theme in the book, and it's referred to in the title, The Sex Lives of Siamese Twins, is a recurring story in the news about a pair of Siamese twins who have a problem with one of their boyfriends. Now, what are you saying there about the news?
Well, it's about that kind of breaking news culture and that kind of that it becomes this kind of voyeuristic thing, and it becomes about creating celebrity with an ongoing sort of narrative rather than actually reporting news, and that's very prevalent in America now. And I think it's also about the sort of this kind of idea that that it's not so much a news story. It's a kind of it's almost like a celebritization of these twins, of that kind of.
And is this a consequence of the fact that news is now a 24-hour business that intrudes into people's homes on their televisions all day long, which because the televisions aren't switched off? Is that what it is, or is it something else?
I think so, but I think it's also got to the point that I mean, I read somewhere recently that more people kind of know the number now of the local breaking news station than they do of the emergency services. So the news cameras are always, something happens in a community, they tip off the breaking news people first, the local news channel first. So they're ahead of the emergency services. You know, they know. I mean, and they know the local news number before they know 911.
Most of this stuff is drivel, isn't it?
Sorry.
Most of this stuff.
Yes.
That is filling these channels is drivel.
Yeah, it's nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. It's not really news at all. It's kind of cheesy features disguised as news.
Now, look, while you're here, and as you're because you live in the States most of the time, don't you? You must talk to us about the Scottish independence referendum, which you've taken a very public stance in.
Yeah, I mean, I basically believe that the long-term kind of prognosis for the union isn't good. I think it's over, basically, and I think that what actually happens in the referendum isn't really too concerning to me. I think the process has actually begun, and I don't think it's kind of going to stop now.
Do you think it really is the business of a man who doesn't even live here any longer to take a position in this?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not my business to vote and all that, and I do feel a bit kind of I do feel a bit kind of presumptuous about it sometimes, but I think you've got to take an interest in where you come from. You've got to keep an interest in what happens in these islands.
And when you say the union is just dying, that's because it doesn't mean anything anymore?
Well, I think the things that we're fueling it, like kind of industry, empire, the esprit de corps from 2 world wars, the welfare state, these things don't exist anymore. So, you know,
the welfare state certainly does.
Almost, yeah. I mean, it's hanging on. It's hanging on in there. But there's not that much of it left. There won't be much of it left in 5 years' time if we continue the same policies we've had for the next 35 years, for the last 35 years. Sorry. So I think really that. In some ways, the political centre of gravity has moved north, and people in Scotland, I think, are feeling more empowered. Whether yes or no voters, I think they do feel that they have kind of strategies now to sort of to progress and to get the kind of representation and kind of government in the country that they want. And I also believe that the real fear for the British establishment is nothing to do with Scottish independence at all. I mean, if you get rid of all the people from the Scottish scenario, like kind of the House of Lords, you know, the bankers, the City of London, the kind, you know, the sort of public school elites. If all these people that are grandfathered into the system that have got to get their cut before anybody else can have anything, people in England are going to say, we'll have some of that. They're not going to stand by and kind of and watch Scotland do this, and they'll want some of it as well. And that's the real fear of the elites, that it's going to change the whole political system for these islands.
Thanks very much. Thank you.